Hi, this is a minute of Overpass. My name is Eric and I make apps. Now this week I want to talk about which one is better for revenue, Android or iPhone. Okay, this week I want to focus on revenue. Now, as I've said many times before, my main source of revenue is my apps. We do work for clients too, which is nice to have a little bit more extra revenue coming in, but most of the revenue for Overpass is through our applications. So it's either through ads or in-app purchases or sales, right? So yeah, that's the livelihood, and I know a lot of people out there, that's your livelihood too. So and a few years ago, I can remember speaking with somebody, like a developer. We had this mastermind group of developers, and we all kind of shared information, and quite a few people said the same thing. They only did, iPhone development and didn't do Android because they couldn't make any money on Android, or the amount of money they made on Android was like a lot lower than they made on iOS, so they just completely ignored Android. And strangely, a few weeks ago, I met another developer at a Google event who said he doesn't do iPhone at all, he only does Android. So it was kind of the opposite of where it was a few years ago. So what I thought I would do this week is kind of show you some of my stats and how Apple compares to the Android platform, or more specifically, how the App Store compares to Google Play in terms of revenue, impressions, downloads, and all that kind of stuff. Now, my strong belief, after looking at all the details, just to cut to the quick, is that Apple still pays a lot more than Android does, but Android, you get a lot more visibility, a lot more downloads, and that kind of stuff. So, all right, so let's go through these stats real quick. Now, what I've done is I've compiled it just for the month of September, so for September 1st to the 30th. So I'm not doing a lifetime thing, just 1 month. Now, just so you know, these are my apps, they are my ad placements, they're my RPM values, all that kind of stuff. So it's going to vary for everybody else, and a lot of people have been asking me lately, how do they increase their RPMs? And the truth is, I don't know. It's different for every app. You have to try different things, try different placements and all that kind of stuff. And I might not be getting as high as I could be, but again, let me just show you how we've done. So for the month of September on Google Play, we've had 119,813 downloads across all of our apps. Now for Apple, we've had 23,083 downloads. So we have a lot more on Android, as you can see. Now, in terms of revenue, now this is just sales, right? Sales and in-app purchases together. For the month of September, for Google Play, we've made, in terms of sales, £1,108.35p. And for Apple, we've made, sorry, I'm just trying to see here, 662 pounds and 65p. Now I'm talking about pounds, GBP, just because that's what I deal with, and because ever since Brexit, the pound is going up and down, and I didn't want to have to convert it all to dollars, so I apologize about that. But you could do your own calculations, how you like. Now if we're going to split that out in terms of sales and in-app purchases, and again, I got this data, it's easiest to get it from App Annie. For sales, it was, for Google Play, it was 856 pounds 48, and in-app purchases was 251 pounds 87. So in-app purchases don't do too bad. I mean, it's worth doing. On Apple, we've had, for sales, 646 pounds 46 have been in sales, and in-app purchase has only been 16 pounds 19. So in-app purchase is not working a great deal on there. Now, to be honest, when it comes to our Apple apps, most of our in-app purchases do one thing, which is just remove ads. So it's not the most compelling. You're going to reach forward and really we hope that people will purchase that, but they don't always do that. So now if you break this down, so by looking at those stats, you can see that we make more from Android, but if you break this down based on the number of downloads and the number of new users we get every month, you can see that for Google Play, we get about 1 cent, 1p per user, but it's actually lower than 1p per user. That's rounded up. It's actually 0.009256707, etc., per user. So we don't make a whole lot through sales. Now, if you compare that to Apple, because we have a lower number of sales but higher number of revenue per sales, we're actually making 0.0287, or just about 3 cents per user, or 3 pence per user. So if downloads were equal, we could come to the conclusion that Apple would pay more. Now, this is one of the things where I think when we talk about ignoring one market over another, I think it's, you kind of want to cover both bases. It might be different for you, and in fact, it would be great if you could share some of your experiences in the comments, because I'm always interested in how other developers are doing. But in terms of there it goes, if we put something into the App Store, we know we'll get more per user, but we're getting less downloads. And to be honest with you, most of my marketing efforts go towards Google Play. So, okay, so that's the sales part, right? So just full transparency, month of September. And month of September was actually pretty good for us. So it's, we seem to be going up and up and up. We're releasing, new apps every week. So now if we look at ad revenue is where we really start to kill it. Now there was a stat thrown out at that Google event I went to a few weeks ago, where they talked about the amount of paying users is actually really low. So like only 2% of app users actually will buy things or make in-app purchases or buy applications. And for me, from my experience, it's actually much lower than that for my apps. So, God, I wish it was 2%. But it does show you that when you're releasing an app, you have to think a lot about that free version and how you can actually monetize the free version. Can you entice them into in-app purchases? Can you get them to actually, make that, leap? Some people have commented in reviews. They say that they've made a purchase to support the developer, and which is nice. But I kind of think I'd much rather them make the purchase, to get added functionality or to remove the ads or to enjoy the experience more, rather than like I guess a charity thing or whatever. But it's still nice that people do that to support the developer. But I don't think you should rely on that as a strategy. Okay, so let's go into ads. So the free apps, which most of our stuff goes through. So same number of downloads, obviously, but in terms of advertisements, we've had a lot more impressions on Android. So on Google Play, on our Google Play apps for Android, we've had 1,194,146 ad impressions. So as I've said before, we do serve a lot of ads. Of that, we've made an RPM of £3.63 on Android, which is really good. For Apple, we've only had 443,518 ad impressions, and that came to an RPM of £2.27. So per user, we make about 3 pence per user on Android, and about 4 pence per user on iPhone. So it's still really low numbers. I mean, I talk to other people who talk about having a lifetime value per user of like, £3 or £2 or £1, and for me it's really, really low. But that's why we have to keep those numbers up. So, and even here, we have a lower RPM on Apple. Now, in the past, we've had a much higher RPM on Apple. That one fluctuates. That goes up and down. Some months Apple's higher, some months Android is higher, and that all depends on the advertisers and all that kind of stuff. So there's no predictability in the ad networks. You kind of just put them out there, serve as many as you can, and hope. So that's it. It's really just being very transparent about how much money you can make from an app, how we're doing at the moment, and so you can look at your own finances as well. Think about, look at how much you're making per month or per day from the ad networks and from sales. Divide that by the number of users and look at, how can you improve that? How can you entice people into making those purchases? When it comes to purchases, and that's when I was telling you those numbers for purchases, that's revenue and not sales. So as we say, Google and Apple both take that 30% off the top. So you need to look at the revenue, not so much the sales. And sometimes it takes a while to calculate that, especially with with Google Wallet. But that's in terms of making real revenue with apps. My whole strategy has always been release a free version, and a paid version. Don't just do a paid version, and although we've tried that before, and don't just do a free version, because you do have to monetize it. So it's good to have some in-app purchases that actually help improve the user experience. Now in the past, a lot of our apps were just, the in-app purchase was remove ads, which is not very compelling. So lately with like our language apps, we started adding more add-ons. So like you get, say, 12 categories, and then if you purchase, then you get like another 50. So something like that. So just something that it gives a little bit more in terms of that in-app purchase. But again, it's still every day is an experiment, and we try all kinds of new things. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done already, or like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're on Snapchat, so if you're interested in Snapchat, it would be great for you to follow along, and we'll let you know what we do every day. And that's it. I'll talk to you next week.